Welcome to the Big Movement Podcast. If you're ready to create results and make huge strides in your business, finances, personal development, and health, then you're in the right place. Pushing past excuses and powering through procrastination can be a challenge alone. Here, you'll get the support, tools, and knowledge you need to get to the level you desire in your business and life. Let's get started with your host, Byron Ingram.
And welcome to another episode of the Big Movement Podcast. Today, we have Tamara Thompson, who is an award-winning documentary filmmaker and CEO of Serious Take Productions. Tamara has produced for high-end clients such as Microsoft, Starbucks, to direct videos with artists ranging from American Idol, X Factor, and NBC's The Voice. So let's hear how she gets behind the camera and produces these amazing videos to bring that life and vitality to people's businesses. So Tamara, welcome.
Thank you, Byron. I'm so excited to be here today.
Oh, it's a great thing that you're here. Doesn't even involve taking a plane, train, or automobile to get here either.
Exactly. It's virtual.
Right. Otherwise, like, there'd be the story involved. Like, okay, there I was. You know how stories tend to start off that way? Like, uh-oh, here we go.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about how did you get into what you're doing now? That's quite, the accomplishment when you look at it. You're doing something amazing that so many people just dream about doing.
Of course. Yeah, well, it's a very long story, but I'll make it just shorter. The sense of actually just getting into video production period, I actually used to run around with my dad's camcorder starting at age 7, making silly videos with my neighbor in middle school to then picking up a camera again right when YouTube really first came out, was creating more silly YouTube vlogs. I have friends now that are on YouTube that are considered YouTube sensations that have 2.5 million subscribers, and I always thought to myself, if I would have kept the channel that I had that had over 800,000 views at the time, that I could potentially be a YouTube sensation at this point, but I guess that wasn't meant for me. But video's always been something I've been interested in. It was more, I had looked at it as a hobby in the beginning, and I really didn't take it seriously as something that could be a career until later on in life. I went back to school at the Art Institute and basically had to be convinced over a matter of probably about 4 years, where friends and family were like, really, you're actually pretty good at creating stuff. You're very creative. You have the eye for this. You have the eye for cinematography. So I thought, okay, well, you know what, I'll do that. So I went back to school at the Art Institute of Seattle, did the degree there, and went through all the courses and started doing more freelance work on the video side as basically the whole part of production, from director, photography, videographer, editing, script writing. I know all of the aspects, lighting, and audio production, all that stuff. So basically went through there. After I left the school, I basically started my own production company at the same time that I joined the corporate world. So I was doing a little mismatch of everything, because I'm such a creative, and I got my foot in the door with a corporate company where I was a video production manager for about 2 years for online educational courses for chiropractors and physical therapists, where I was the one that came in and made it creative. You can imagine me coming in, and they just had these videos that's just content being recorded hour after hour, one camera, nothing creative. I just, being a creative, I thought, well, why don't you guys get 2 cameras, 3 cameras, add B-roll, all this terminology was new to them, and add graphics, get 3D models, so their quality of work started to progress and became really popular, and I believe they're still one of the top online educational platforms for continuing education for physical therapists right now. And from there, though, I kind of moved on from there, and I had a position open up to be produced for another company, where I produced for Microsoft and Starbucks and some other head executive companies as well. But during that time, I was still working as a freelancer through my own company, basically, Serious Take Productions, and started building that. And there was a moment where I literally was on set on a Microsoft shoot, and I realized that the work environment and culture was just not how I envisioned living my day-to-day life. I just, nothing against the companies or anything, but just having stressful situations, or even having a team that puts you on stress, like on an actual shoot where everything was fine in the office, but anytime we had individuals on a shoot where their stress level raised, like no matter what, on any type of shoot, that wasn't something that I wanted to work with. So I thought, well, I work really good under pressure as well, but having a negative environment at times, like I just thought, well, I'd want to build my own culture, my own company, be my own boss. And so I started basically going from there, and I built relationships with a couple of our clients that were freelancers through my actual freelance part. And I put together large proposals as a company. And I actually said to myself, if I'm able to put together these proposals and land these clients, larger corporations, then I'm going to move forward and I'm going to become my own boss. And I never looked back, basically.
Oh, excellent. And that's a great way to do it, because you did it incrementally, and then you had that moment to take the big leap, but all the groundwork was already in place.
Exactly. I built the relationship with a couple of clients on the freelance side, and then I put together actual year-long contracts to lock them in at a larger rate with larger packages. I actually had added social media management along with video production content at the time, but since then we've moved away from that. We strictly do video production, and our whole purpose is to create, connect, and inspire through video, through storytelling. So we really niche down over the years to really figure it out, because I realized I like to really pull out people's stories, and that's what's most important for a brand or an individual or a company. Like, what is it that messages that people can connect with, and not just like a talking head video, but like, how can you be creative? Like, where's the cinematic feel of it? Like, pull out the 4K drones, like all the different things that can make it more visually appealing to get people more interested and want to watch and continue to watch a video, because people click on videos these days and they'll click off in like 5 seconds if it's not interesting within that time period to capture their attention, right?
Right. Oh, yes, definitely. I think it's something that's so critical today, that even though video, especially when you look at platforms like Facebook, you see it everywhere. We have to, especially as entrepreneurs, step up what we're doing so we stand out. So it's not like, here's another one, next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so many things with it too. Like, I know you and I have had conversations about my story too, and I had a lot of bumps in the road, like going to where I am and really figuring out my journey too. And I remember just even figuring out what I wanted to create and actually be happy in video production, because so many people would come to us for things like, an example, people still come to us and ask us if we'll do just strictly post-production, and we don't offer that, because we want to control the actual quality of what's being put out there, like by our company, right? Not saying like, this is something like somebody sends us footage of something and it's poor lighting, it's grainy, it's the audio is poor. Like, we don't want that to be attached to our name, because we want everything to come out like epic. And that's just the way I am, but I don't know how other people are.
Well, that's important, because you establish a standard for what you're doing. So it's not just taking any bit of business, because you think about that exemplar. Someone just gives you their raw video for post-production. If it doesn't meet your standards, well, then people are going to think that, oh, well, you're the one who did all of this. Like, you can't really do that. Exactly.
And that's hard too, because there has been past projects where people are like, oh, Serious Take Productions did this. And I was like, no. I was like, we did post-production. I was like, there's only so much that you can do with post-production. And I, like with our team, like I've been embedded like specific thoughts as well. Like when people are on set, you never say like, oh, well, they can just fix that in post. Like, that's not necessarily true. Like, right. The people that are actually saying that probably aren't the person that's actually doing the editing. So it's, we always it's strictly make things right from the get-go, even on set. I told you we just got back from New York, right? We had 4 sets of audio recording, that's how important it is, like, to make sure you get audio right the first time. Like, you want to make sure everything's right. If it takes you an hour and a half to set up lighting, people need to understand it's because we want, I'm quite the perfectionist, but we want to pay attention to all the detail in the room, all the lights, like what's in the background, like, is there something sticking out back of the person's head? Like, what's it visually look like? And people just don't really think about the long process that it actually takes to put on a high quality production. And that's what we provide for people, is that premium level product.
Right. And it's important that you spend that extra time in the beginning, because you think about the number of businesses out there that will say, oh, if it's not right, we'll just do it again. But think about the amount of time that's lost when it's not done right. So you have to set
or
up
if you have to refly out to New York or Australia or wherever it is, like half of our productions aren't even in the same state sometimes, because people are like, wow, we really want to work with you, let's fly you out. And being able to capture all of that first time, it's losing costs there. If we're like, okay, well, let's just shoot it again, or if we have to contract out, like, we like to have all of our team members that go out are obviously people that we work with regularly. We trust them. We build that relationship with our employees and contractors. So it's just, it's a win-win if you get everything the first time.
Right, exactly. That's so true. Get it right the first time, because it sets the standard. And then also, when you're looking at it from the other perspective, people see that you take the time to do it right.
And you care.
And you care, versus people who just do it like, oh, well, we've got to fix that. Versus if you have to fix something, then it could be something that you couldn't control. Like, let's say that you're going to a shoot and you had everything laid out, but you ended up with this severe, freaky weather storm that came in, and it was a torrential downpour for 5 days straight when you're supposed to do the shooting. Well, obviously, you can't do anything about that.
Of course, yeah. And people, like, there's like with us, we have a huge like pre-production process too, from like the strategy sessions to the storyboarding to the location scouting. Like, what is the perfect ideal location for this message, for this brand? Like, there's a lot that goes into it, because it's not like, hey, just bring out your camera, let's shoot. Like, let's wing it. Let's hope it turns out, because usually those are the people that come back. And I've had clients come to us and say this about people they've worked with in the past. They said, well, these people offered this, but it's not what I expected. I was like, well, that's why we do all the pre-production, and we ask specific questions. We send over questionnaires, like, get major details. Like, we want it to be that vision that they see, or something like, if they can't see it, then we help them like see it, visually, or if it's descriptive verbiage or storyboarding, like actual like drawn out like boxes, like all that stuff. So it's important to pay attention to detail too.
Right. Oh yes, definitely. So obviously you have a immense background when you get into pre-production there, because so many people they're entrepreneurs and they're using a various type of equipment. What should they be looking at if they're going to create videos for themselves in terms of that location, that scenery? So it's not just, oh, here's the floating head video, 99% of the time. Mm-hmm. What can they do to spice things up that doesn't cause them to like, okay, I'm taking out a second mortgage on my home to make this video?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, when you are first starting off, and it's funny you mentioned that, because I'm actually releasing a course. We have a course coming up March 1st, I believe, is where I'm actually teaching individuals how to use their smartphones in an effective way to create more professional looking video if they really are trying to start off on, keep it on a budget, because there are certain things that you do need to include for like creating things. But I think with people like just realizing, like, for like location wise, if they're trying to shoot something like outdoors, you have to pay attention to like the lighting. Like, are you a silhouette? Like, are you facing the sun? Are you behind the sun? Like, just simple things people don't think about, or having like little tools that you can use, even like a Rode lavalier mic that can go into a cell phone, or if you want to up your game to the next budget, like getting a DSLR, that has like a LED flip screen that you can put it to like autofocus, like things like that people can actually start recording their own videos if it's with their cell phone or not. But a lot of the iPhones and other things these days, they have like 4K footage, so you can have really nice footage, but you need to make sure that you are well lit and you have proper audio, because if you don't have either of those with that, and the stability side, like putting like your phone or your DSLR, whatever kind of camcorder that you might get, like make sure it's stable, like because shakiness, like if I'm watching a video and somebody's running down the stairs like with their phone, I'm probably going to hop off of that real quick. Or if you're walking, I'm now in like the Blair Witch Project 4 or something. I don't know. But like just the little tips like that. Like people can get out there and get going just by starting, and that's what's going to help them get their brand out there more. And when they get to that point where they really want to have more professional video, if it's something that goes through a funnel or, things like that, we have specific things where we've partnered with specific companies and brands, like a digital agency, where we create the actual videos, like from the branding trailer that leads into through a funnel sequence. So you have like your descriptive video, your opt-in video, your thank you page video, but we make everything very creative as well. So there's like multiple camera angles, like there's things like that, and people can always download like beginner like editing apps or things even from your phone. I wouldn't recommend editing from your phone, but I would always say if you shoot with your phone, still edit off of a desktop. That's just my recommendation, but you can control it a little bit more. Right. But there's just there's different things that people can do, but I say for people that are really just starting to get off and they don't have a budget yet, like literally just get started so that you at least try it. Like I always encourage people to go live, like on Facebook Live, and basically because they need to step out of their comfort zone, right?
Right.
So.
Well, that's always key. You have to step outside of your comfort zone, because unless you do, you're never going to grow. You're always going to be playing it safe. Like, oh, but I might fail. Well, if you don't get in the game, that's automatically failing.
Exactly. And like nobody's ever like perfect first, right? Like my first videos on YouTube, like I was like jumping around with a little Canon shot camera, like dancing in my room to like 80s music, like that's like what it was. Like I was giving people tours of my house. Like I was that person. Depending on your brand, obviously you could choose the style of the type of videos you want to showcase. If you're doing like interview videos, or you're doing behind the scenes, or like tip of the day videos, like whatever it is, you just need to get started. But I always emphasize stability, audio, lighting, crisp, clear content is what you need to have people want to watch your content again, basically. Because if it's poor quality, or they can't see you, or they can't hear you, are they going to want to watch it again? Probably not. Depending on who you are or how big your influence is on people.
Right, exactly. It's all about building up the influence, because once you have it, then people know what to expect. But when you're just starting out, you have those shoes to fill. You have that you think about, you have to build the trust factor.
Yes.
That it can't be just something minor. You have to be something that makes people stop and go, whoa, that's interesting.
Well, and that's something that we focused on. So, like, with one of our latest documentary launches for Inspired by 11, where my partner and I went out and interviewed 11 top entrepreneurs from around the world, basically. Through that process, we were connecting with higher level influences with entrepreneurs in specific niches. But it was cool to see that and be able to, we strategically planned it so that we were able to record and ask inspiring content, but we also asked questions that we wanted to learn to implement for our business. So it was like a win-win. We were out there producing this documentary film. It was, telling a story, which I love, and be able to provide content, from specific, types of people, like lead generation, like marketing, like PR, things that I hadn't necessarily thought of a few years ago when I was like really starting to dive into the business. And so that really helped us. But working with, speaking of influence, working with other influential people, those are the people you also want to connect with too as you're building your circle, because you always want to surround yourself with people that are at a higher level than yourself. They always say that you shouldn't be the smartest person in the room. Like, you want to learn from other people that have experienced more than you. And so we started doing that and building the relationships with some of these influencers that are now our friends, like John Lee Dumas, Entrepreneur on Fire. And by that, I'm meaning like we built that relationship with John the last few years. And if you look at his EO Fire resource page, Serious Take Productions is the only video production company that's on his resource page, because we built that relationship with him as an influencer, but now our friend. So, it's just, you have to take the time to do the right things. But all I say to people is literally like, just get started, start connecting with people, and just start making a difference with what you're doing for your brand and get out there.
Right, exactly. That's so key. It's building those connections, because I think that's where people tend to lack, or they don't put the emphasis on their focus just on the sale of what they're doing, instead of how can you build the rapport with people who are going to help you get in front of the audiences that you truly want to be in front of.
Of course. And the other thing with that too is being persistent and not really like giving up, because like when people go out and introduce themselves and they get discouraged by, something that you've been building at, or you're hoping for, like to land a client, like an example, like I had a situation this morning, and this is me just being raw. Like I'd been working on a package for a potential client that's multiple 6 figures, right? And like that it's all about that hope aspect and getting your foot in the door with the right people. And we were rejected this morning because we are a company that is in Los Angeles, and they went with a team that was in their local area in Florida. And, and that company that they went with had experience with the space and the venue that they were actually like going with. And I understand, like, but you always have to come back and follow up and figure out why it is that they went with this, like you learn from your experiences too, because like, and you don't ever give up, right? You have to build rapport with these people. And that's the way we built with a lot of different people for events and production. Like a lot of people have said no to me and reject me, and I build that relationship, and over time they come back around, because it's like the power of the follow-up too, like making yourself known. They say like, if you don't like connect with people like every 90 days, they literally like kind of forget about you. And so that's what I'm really good at, is just connecting other people with other people when it makes sense, like really like what can you do that's like you're not being selfish, and you're giving back and not necessarily expecting anything from it, but as things come around, it comes full circle. But we've had a lot of relationships built with clients too. So I take this, situation that happened just this morning, and I think, okay, well, everything happens for a reason. Hopefully this team will work with us in the future, and we can show them what kind of an experience that we can create for them. So it's just, you don't give up, basically. Just keep going and really just drive towards your goal. And basically, like, that's the path of entrepreneurship, being a business owner as well. But you just figure out the strategies that you can, and then focus on the things that are in your space right now that can move forward. So there's a lot of things that go on that people can relate with, I'm sure.
Right, well, and that's the key to it. It's building those rapport and relationships. Because who's to say that this company that said no today, they do something in a year from now and they say yes, or they reach out to you, say that, hey, do you remember when? Can you help us?
Exactly, because you've put yourself in front of them. You've shown them, like, we showed them obviously our production quality and work, and I totally understand like their reasoning behind it. But you always try to get your foot in the door, and like if the timing's not right, it's not right. It just you accept it, but you always be in people's space though. Always like follow up, catch up, see how you can provide like service to people. Like that's how we built relationships with the entrepreneurs that we interviewed in our film, and now I'm close with basically like 5 of the 11 I consider really good friends of mine now, that we interviewed. And so that's cool, because we've been able to meet people through that and through connecting with them, and some of them became our clients, and so it just kind of comes forth, but sometimes it takes a while.
Right, and that's the other thing. You have to be thinking the long term, that it's not just instant. It's not like, put someone in the microwave for 60 seconds and ding, they're done. Like, oh, look, we have
done.
Hey, everybody's happy.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
As nice as that would be, it doesn't work that way. You have to think that it's similar to dating. You just don't show up one day and go, okay, I guess we're getting hitched. Well, no, you kind of need to take a few steps.
I don't know. I've heard some stories on some people that get married by the third date.
Yeah,
They just knew.
Exceptions. Like, well, we just knew. Interesting. Okay, reality TV time. So.
No, it's interesting how life works. But sometimes people just know on certain things, and like I just know with what we do and what we provide for people, for like brands and video production at a higher level. Like I know that we will be able to work with people just like the ones that we talked to this morning. We already are working with other individuals like that, but we're trying to expand more into other areas. I mean, we travel out of the country at times, different states, but you know, you have that hope sometimes, and sometimes you feel a little heart drop in that moment, and then you're like, okay, take a deep breath, and then just keep moving forward. And sometimes it's hard for people, but I'm just one of those people. I've been through a lot in my life that really I am this way for a reason. I literally, like, I spoke with you on another call before, but I told you a little bit about my backstory. Like I just recently celebrated 6 years sobriety, and from that experience of what happened to me, like I'm such a stronger person from what I went through, and I literally, like, in my little bit about the backstory there, I was drinking a lot in my mid-20s, and I was depressed. I was unhappy in my corporate position. I worked in the fitness industry, and I got out of a relationship, and it was my first love, and I was dumped. And the very next day, I literally was hit by a car.
Ow.
Yeah, it was a bad year. Gained over 85 pounds that year, went through depression, started going to the bars, started drinking, started making Taco Bell runs. Wow. I had a big problem, and I ended up getting in trouble with the law over and over and over again, and I knew somebody was looking over me, saying, like, just kept giving me multiple chances, because I was one of those people that drank and drove probably 5 days out of the week for like 6 years straight. Luckily I didn't hurt myself or anyone in any car accident, but I literally was pulled over one day, and this cop actually gave me a reckless driving ticket. He didn't see the empty alcohol containers in my back seat and let me go. But he gave me like a $400 ticket. And a week after that, exactly in that same exact spot, I was pulled over again. And I got my first DUI. And the guy, I remember the state patrolman, he actually was thoroughly concerned for me. And I was actually living with family at that time. About age 23, I believe. And he told my mom, he's like, I'm severely, like, worried about your daughter. I believe she's what we call a seasoned alcoholic. She can hold her own. She can have a complete conversation. She passed most of the field sobriety tests, but her BAC level is at 1.8, over double the legal limit.
Wow.
And so if you think about it, so that scared me quite a bit, right? So for 2 weeks, I didn't drink at all. 2 weeks after that, I went out and I drank because it was a friend's party, I believe it was like a bridal shower party. And I had this bar that I went to on Sunday nights because it was dollar pitcher night, not dollar beer night, dollar whole pitcher night. And it started at 4 p.m. So you can imagine going from like 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. It was perfect timing, right? Because we could still get in bed by 10 and get ready for work the next morning.
Right.
And so I would go to this place, and my friends, after I left I had a glass of wine at my friend's bridal shower, and I thought to myself, nope, I can't drink and drive, So I did that, and then I had friends text me, where are you? And so what I do, I went to the bar. And again, I hadn't ate most of the day, and I got really sick, actually. And I basically was pulled over again the same night, 2 weeks later after my first DUI. And basically, I had gotten sick on myself. I had gotten sick down my car. It was a very, ugly sight. And my mom had to come pick me up again. And you could imagine the shame that was on my mom's face and how I felt. But that continued to persist. I was thrown into mandatory AA, mandatory sentencing for first, second offense. But luckily I had one of them deferred, which you can basically drop off a DUI off your record. And then 3 years later, I had actually gotten my life semi together. Thought to myself, well, I'm not drinking and driving. I had suspended license, but I had people come pick me up. I was like, oh, I'm fine because I'm not driving, right? But right. I still was drinking a lot. And so it didn't really click. And then the day that I found out that I was accepted into this new program for fitness, at this technical school that I was applying for, I'd found out I got in because I was in the fitness industry. I was going back for recertifications and things. That day, my coworkers were like, let's go out and celebrate. And I was like, I probably shouldn't. But what I did. I was a social butterfly. Yeah. Went out again. I had smoked cigarettes on and off for 10 years when I drank. That night, not that night, but I did give up smoking eventually. But I flicked a cigarette out the window and it caught the officer's attention, was pulled over. I knew I was going to jail. I was like, oh, great, this is ridiculous. Didn't take it seriously still. 3 years later, again, I got pulled over a fifth time, basically, by the cops. This would be my fourth, offense for, a DUI. And that really hit me, really hard. And I knew at that point I was going to jail for a while. And I ended up being sentenced to 3 months in jail and 4 months home detention, 5 years of interlock on my car, mandatory 2 years probation weekly, to AA meetings, 5 times a week, to completing a whole alcohol treatment, which I went through the third time, which third time's a charm, right? And I actually took it seriously the third time. And from that point though, I smoked my last cigarette and I drank my last drink on that fourth DUI, and I was thrown in jail and I was scared to death. And then some of the experiences that went on while I was in jail for those 3 months definitely kicked me into a different mindset of where I wanted to be in life. And I'm not saying that this happens to everyone. You don't necessarily have to go through a traumatic experience that will push you to do what you want to do. But it definitely helped me get on track. Too bad it took 30 years of my life to really figure out how to change myself around. But I see why I'm so persistent with things at this point. I definitely have that director mentality for filmmaking, because I've directed, a few different films and direct on set. But that's basically where my story went, from making, silly YouTube videos to alcoholism, to basically busting through that, to becoming sober, to running a successful business now, which it molded me to who I am today though. And I just keep getting stronger from my experience. And I think it's really about the experiences that we have in life that really help us, if it's from being rejected to being thrown in jail to, whatever it is, we have to fight through all those moments. So I always look back at things like that when I get a rejection. I'm just I'm just going to pursue this anyways in some other way. If it's just keeping communication open, or, just keeping tabs on these companies or brands and seeing what they're doing and seeing what I can offer in the future. So there's just a lot there.
Right. Well, and that's the critical thing, is that you overcame it. You think of the challenges that you went through. So many people, they never would have had that aha moment and it made the decision to stop drinking and to stop smoking. Think about how many people, they're oh, well, I got busted again. And they keep along that same pattern instead of having the big epiphany. Well, this isn't good.
It's true. Yeah, I've spoken with people that have multiple DUIs, because the laws have become a lot harsher in the last 5 years, I would say. And I was living in Washington State at the time, and it was the second harshest state for offenses at the time. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if it just doesn't click, or if people aren't willing to try to pull themselves out of that rut, you're the one that makes the decision. It's all you. You can have the support, and I definitely had support, but I also had a lot of like shame going on around me. And what's funny is it was harder for me to quit the smoking than it was the drinking. I had more cravings for cigarettes the first 9 months than I did for alcohol. I was so scared. I was like, I can't even, like, once I passed that like mark where I like really had to be like keep sober, like after the 2-year mark of like getting through treatment, like I didn't even want to like touch anything. And now I just don't even think about it. Like, I think there's only been a couple points in the first couple years where I thought about it, but then I would ask for help or support and just be like, no, I don't need to spiral back this way. Like, I want to do something for myself and be my own boss and everything through that. So, and right. I actually sobered up the year that I started Serious Take Productions, basically. So, wow. Yeah.
Now, that's a great journey. So, obviously, it's been a while since you've had anything to drink. And when you look at the world we live in, so much revolves around alcohol, especially you think about the conferences and such. People are going to the happy hours and meeting in bars.
Cocktail, the pre-event parties.
Right. Like, how do people make it through these events? Like, no one's sober. But how do you go to these events where these social hours such and maintain sobriety when there's all the alcohol and cigarettes and everything else around you?
Well, luckily for me, a lot of the people I surround myself with, like, either don't drink or drink only on a social thing. It's not like, the only thing that always like bothers me is I take myself out of situations as it gets kind of late into the evening. Like, I'll probably leave something by like 10 where some people are there till like midnight, because it's that kind of like nothing against anyone, but for me, I get like more tense or like an annoyance of like somebody that might be like sloshed, like right. It's just I don't like being in the atmosphere, so I tend to remove myself earlier in the evenings. It doesn't bother me that people like drink in front of me, and most people that know me know that about me. So I'm not right. afraid, and I'm not afraid to turn down a drink. Like, I can say no, thank you, I don't drink, and people respect that. It's not like it used to be when I was out socializing at different types of bars where people like had that peer pressure at entrepreneurial events. I think people are at a certain level in your life, like a certain point in your life, people just respect your decision. They're not there to be like in your early 20s, like pure, yeah, you got to drink, take this shot with me. Like, so luckily I haven't had that like come up much, but I don't really surround myself with that stuff. I'm not the type of person that goes out on New Year's. I'd rather stay in or go to a movie and like fix hors d'oeuvres or something. Like, I just removed like specific people in my life, not that they weren't my friends, but it wasn't the path I was going on. And so when I did sober up, I lost a lot of people, so I thought they were my friends, but it was more of like a social thing. So, and then started surrounding myself with the right types of people that were for myself and my path and understanding entrepreneurship, that were like-minded. So luckily right. I haven't had a lot of situations, but I don't tend to put myself in those situations much.
Well, it makes a difference when you surround yourself with the right people. I look back and over the years how I shifted my thinking, and like alcoholic, it doesn't exist in my world, but you look at the relationships, how many of them were only focused around, hey, we're going to meet up for happy hour. And then if it wasn't for that, like, well, what do you have in common? There's that awkward silence, like, nothing. And,
yeah. I mean, I don't even meet up with people even for like business meetings or introduction meetings. Like, I'm like, hey, let's meet for a cup of coffee or tea. I don't give that like happy hour like feel usually. If it's something where it's to meet over dinner or something, I totally understand because people's schedules are different. But I like to control the situation on the type of environment too, or I like to make suggestions. Of course, I'm going to be accommodating based on the individual and what's going on. But it's just really about surrounding yourself with the right atmosphere if you're dealing with something like that. If you're trying to sober up, or you're like, oh, why can't I do this? Like, remove yourself, or ask for help, or if you need to join a program or some sort of support system, like it does help. So. Yeah.
Right, exactly, because once you achieve that sobriety, you start changing your viewpoints. It's like you don't want to be around people who are getting sloshed. You think of days like New Year's Eve. How many people that they're consuming more alcohol than should be humanly possible in one
I know.
night?
And then the ones that go out and still drive, I was one of those people, so I can't say like that, but just realizing that, man, I could have hurt someone, and the amount of deaths that happened on the road during New
Yeah.
Year's, oof.
Oh,
It's
yes.
just horrible.
I remember several years ago, this was one of those affirmations of, this is all the more reason why I'd rather just spend time hanging out at a New Year's party at someone's house than going out anywhere in town. I was driving back from a New Year's Eve party, just out, just having fun, didn't drink anything, just because it was like a 45-minute drive back home. And as I'm leaving downtown Dallas, I'm going along one of the highways, and I see a car overturned on the side of the road.
Yes.
That blew my mind. I thought, how bad was somebody if they flipped their car? And you're wondering, I hope no one got hurt, but it just made you think, what is it that people are doing, these poor decisions? And how does it, how does it affect so many things? Because you look at all the other areas that it can affect in terms of that your productivity and your job, your career, everything can just be utterly destroyed.
I know, and the fact that back when I was drinking and stuff, we did have taxi cabs and stuff, and we didn't have the sense of like Uber or Lyft back then. But look at the options that people have now. If they do decide that that's their plan for the night is to go out and drink quite a bit, and they really shouldn't be on the road, like you have so many more options these days to be able to have a ride and be safe, and just take that into consideration. And sometimes people just don't, they get to a certain point and then they're not thinking about it anyways because they're that intoxicated. So they just take the keys and they get in the car. But if you pre-plan it from, that before that night, like, I'm going to have somebody like take my keys or, whatever it is, like pre-plan it. Like, it's so easy to just hop in an Uber or Lyft these days instead of like trying to drive or wait for a taxi. Like there's just options, which is great for like our economy too, and car rides.
Right, exactly. It eliminates some of those biggest excuses because you think about how many times someone would say, "Oh no, it's too expensive to take a taxi." Okay, compared to what it would cost you to get a DUI, it's cheap.
I know. I was like, what about like $30,000 later, like $30 cab ride versus a $30,000 DUI, like your attorney's fees, like, oh my gosh, like I can't even tell you how many thousands of dollars that went out. I won't even go into it. But like people, when they say that, like it's that whole mindset thing on the same side of entrepreneurship when people say I can't afford things instead of my mindset's like, how can I afford this? What can I do to create money right now that I can be able to invest in this? This should be the same thing for taxi cabs or think about like what could happen if I do drink and drive and how much money that's going to, so I don't know.
Right.
Interesting.
It's just that shift in mindset. That's what everything comes down to. You think about being successful in business, showing up on camera properly. It all comes down to the thoughts between your ears each and every day of what we have to do. Mm-hmm. And
definitely.
it's just showing up and being present with it. It changes everything. So let me ask you this, we're wrapping up everything, because we've talked about so many things, from that journey into video production, building the rapport and relationships, and overcoming those hardships, because all these things define you. What's one thing you recommend to entrepreneurs to get their message out there so people know who they are and want to ultimately invest in what they have to offer?
Of course. Yeah, no, my one thing, because this is what I do all the time. People always ask, like, how did you do this? I'm like, literally, it's like the easiest thing is like take massive action. Like literally, I know people say it all the time, but that's what it is. Like if you want to get out in front of people, if you want to connect with people, like whatever it is, you take massive action to be able to connect with people. And if you get rejected or whatever it is, you just keep going. Like an example, when I was starting Inspired by 11, as well as another previous web series I did with artists called Artist Encore. Like I used Twitter as my vice about 4 years ago, and I don't use it as much anymore. But during that time period, I would reach out to like 100 people, and maybe 5 people responded, right? And so but I had like influencers and celebrities, and like I have Lori Grenier from Shark Tank. She's following me on Twitter. So is Marcus Lemonis from CNBC's The Profit, like two of my favorite entrepreneurial shows. They're actually following me on Twitter because I found effective ways to get their attention, to build a rapport with their team. Like I had asked them to be on our documentary, but it didn't work out with the timing. But I've built that relationship, and I continuously touch base with their team, like here and there, to like keep that thought open if there is like something for collaboration in the future. Like you just take action and you just keep going. Like you can fall flat on your face multiple times, but I mean, just think about it. There's so many trivial things in life that people just are like, oh no, I'm just not going to do that today. Like, why not? Like people, I gave some advice the other day. I said, why don't you try like setting a goal to connect with 3 new people like a day, right? Like build your, relationships and see out of like 3 times 30 days in a month, like see how many people of those people actually connect or are interested in what you do or your services. I mean, three is not a lot. Like yesterday we did a personal outreach to 30 people, and that was a Sunday. Most people are like, no, it's a Sunday, it's a day off, but I work quite a bit. I just focus on what's important, and I do what I need to do to take action to where I want to be. And we don't all have that opportunity. Sometimes we're in like corporate positions, but do what you need to do, like I did by joining a corporate business and work part-time in my own business. So I was working over 60 hours to really pursue that. But it really is just about taking action and just going through the experiences, hard or not.
Right, exactly. So in terms of massive action, I think that's just a great way to finish everything up. So it sounds like if someone really wanted to grow their business, just start personally outreaching to people, even a handful a day, can have a dramatic impact on the outcome of the whole year.
Definitely. And do some like due diligence, do some research, make sure you're reaching out to people and you've done something where you know more about them, a little bit about them or their company. Like make sure you're not going out and just sending a message. Like an example, somebody wrote me a message and I knew exactly what he does with his company. He actually owns a media company. I'm not going to say any names, but the fact that he made an introduction to somebody that was to help with the book writing process to me, but in the sense that he was like, hey, Tamara, I wanted to introduce you to this person. I think it'd be great for your book launch. And I thought to myself, what book launch? like make sure that you know what's going on in these people's like around them, or like just start a conversation and don't cold pitch people right off the bat, because that's not how to build a relationship, right? I mean, you can take massive action and get people's attention, but try to like offer something or ask questions, learn more about them, and just kind of see how you can provide help or service or promote something or just reach out. Like that's basically what you can do, because a lot of cold pitching does not work these days unless you have like a really high quality service that is known, like you're on Yelp, you're all over the place. It just makes sense that way.
Right. There's too many people that they follow that philosophy of just cold pitching constantly instead of what can you do to add in 1 or 2 more steps beforehand to add value to someone's life first. Which enhances the ability for you to get a yes from them.
Exactly. And don't Facebook friend me and invite me to like your page right away without saying hi first.
So if they say hi first and then like offer you like a Starbucks coupon or something like that, then have at it.
Yeah, I mean, we've all learned from our experiences, and people sometimes just don't think about it. They're like, oh, I'm connecting with someone, like my page or something, but maybe get to know me first, ask about myself, and then be like, hey, would you be open to liking my page? Like, I can do the same for you. Like, I'll like your page, something, like offer something of value. So, yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah, definitely. It makes a world of a difference. Well, I want to thank you for coming to the Big Movement podcast today and sharing your wealth of wisdom in so many areas about life and business. How can people learn more about you and what you do at Serious Take Production, and ultimately learn more about your course that's coming up?
Yeah, well, our course launch is probably coming March 1st. We're actually finishing up production on February 2nd and running through all that. So right now you can basically go in and actually go to our website. It's probably the easiest way to learn more about what our services are through SeriousTakeProductions.com. You can also follow our Facebook page, SeriousTakeProductions.com. If you actually follow my public figure, Director Tamara Thompson page, it literally says Director Tamara Thompson. So I'm like, I am the director. sure. So if you go follow that Facebook page, that one will probably give out more, well, on our sites too, but that one will do more live streams and talk about actual course coming up and how I can provide it, because that's like my own personal, project coming out through our brand. But yeah, that would be the best way to connect with me personally, is through the director Tamara Thompson Facebook page.
Oh, excellent. That is so awesome, as I'm sure people really want to jump on board, because live streaming is not going anywhere and people need to maximize its usage.
I challenge everyone listening to this, if you have not done a Facebook live stream, go on there, test it out, tell a story, tell a tip, show behind the scenes, do something just to get yourself and your brand just to become more comfortable with something, because video is where it's at and it's not going to stop anytime soon.
Right, exactly. Video's been here for how many years, and it's not going anywhere?
Longer than me.
Just by a year or two, right?
Yeah,
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you, Tamara, for coming onto the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks for listening to the Big Movement Podcast today. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Now that you've surely been inspired to take your entrepreneurial career and business to the next level, you can stop by the website and get more. And if you're ready to boost your business brand, be sure to grab your free report, 7 Easy Steps to Build Your Brand Today.